So this project began in 2008 with a National Science Foundation grant entitled Science Literacy Through Science Journalism, which we've shortened to SciJourn. In 2008, shows you how quickly things change. Science literacy was the buzzword. Obviously today it's STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And you can easily change the science in here to STEM literacy, and everything I will say is still true. And some of us who are of the older side remember another push for science literacy in the 1960s after the Soviets launched Sputnik. And the mission then was to create more scientists. For those of you who might recognize, that's Mr. Wizard, Frank Herbert, who had a TV program starting, I think, actually back in the 1950s, where he would work with young kids, usually boys, and do science on TV. The current push to science literacy or STEM literacy is much more complex and much more nuanced. And
so we keep looking to what's real and making it real for the kids. So, you know, that we can have a newspaper seems important because there are newspapers in the world. That we can do broadcast journalism is important because people do broadcast journalism in the world. That we can do conferences and people present to one another is important because that's what happens in the world. By autonomy, what I really mean is that students have a sense of agency. They have a sense of choice. And that's an important thing in terms of learning. It might not be as important to you as a fifth grade teacher, but it's really important when somebody gets out in the world. And you know how we talk about this college and career readiness? It's all about being able to be a self-directed learner and make choices. And you'll see that this project encourages choice making over and over again. And that sense that, yeah, I can do it. What I think about matters. Laura, is she here?
Right here.
Yes, right there. Used to have a big sign over her room when you entered, and it said, "The best questions are your own questions." And we share that. And in terms of community, we all work in nested communities. So when I start teaching, I want to know who's in my class. And if I'm a bad speller, I can go over there and rely on somebody who's a good speller. If I'm not so good in art, I can go over there and ask somebody who's a good artist. And so using the community, not just the teacher as a source of expertise, is a really key idea. But beyond that little classroom community, you've got the school community. And beyond that, you've got the people in the neighborhood. And you've got parents. And even in this day and age, you have this internet community. So you're really able to communicate all over the world, and we try and develop projects that encourage that.
This 15 years after graduation model, the question is, how do you teach for 15 years out, or for these 21st century skills that people are talking about? And the model we've come up with is to follow what a good science journalist does. And what a good science journalist does is articulate an issue of contemporary interest. So everything's up to date. Researches it using multiple credible sources, digests and makes sense of that information, including complex and technical, constructs an evidence-based story based on what they've learned, and communicates it in a way that a wide audience can understand it. That's literacy written large. And what's interesting about this model is you could say, well, you could do this for history, or you could do this for social sciences. It's a broad-based model. So what we've done is take the journalism model and some of the journalism language as we've moved forward. As of the end of this month, we will officially have 5 years of experience doing this. we've been in lots of high schools, and the project was originally envisioned for high schools. But thanks to people like Marsha Berger, we've actually realized that middle school kids can do this, which was a surprise to me. Actually, when we started, I wasn't even sure high school students could do this. So we've learned a lot in the process. We've also worked in some informal settings, most notably the St. Louis Science Center. We've interacted with lots of kids. We've long ago lost count. We're up around 60 teachers that have gone through the project. We have been across the board in urban, suburban, rural, public, and parochial schools. So we've tried it pretty much everywhere. And what isn't on that slide is some of these were high-performing schools based on tests, and some of these were very low-performing schools. Wendy's pointing out we've been both in St. Louis and Kentucky. We've had some teachers sort of volunteer their way in, and we've had a teacher in Indiana and in Colorado. Actually, we just picked up a second one in Colorado. So as Wendy's pointing out, it's important to be authentic. So one of the aspects of this is we have a website, SciJourn.org, where all the articles that are accepted by the nasty editor, who is me, get published on the website. Works out about 10–15% of the articles submitted get published. It depends on the classroom. Some people like Marsha and Rose Davidson over there are much more aggressive of getting their students published, and their rates may be a little bit higher.